started, we're going to start with breathing. So whether you're using blocks or bolsters, totally whatever you want to do. Sometimes the bolsters are a little more forgiving. If you want more depth, blocks can be nice, but you can come out anytime you like. If you've got back stuff and you want to give yourself a little bit of space between you and that stem bolster, if your back's good to go, then you can snuggle right in. Line your spine up with the bolster, and then it's nice to just push into your feet to lift up your butt and lengthen your butt away from your low back. Soles of the feet are going to clap, knees are going to come apart, arms are going to come out beside us, palms facing up. Just taking a minute here to find a little bit of symmetry, noticing if one shoulder is dropping over the bolster more than the other. At any point you want to just do these flat on the floor, feel free. Then we're going to think about squeezing the soles of the feet to one another. Sometimes it's nice to pull the toes away from one another. And then just a wee little bit, lift your outer heels away from the floor. Just a tiny little bit, as if there was a little sponge there and you were trying to lift up off that sponge. And then lengthen from your inner groins to your inner knees. Think inner knees to outer knees go down to the floor, as if there was an orange or cantaloupe between your outer knees and the floor and you wanted to gently squeeze that. And then go from the outer knees to the outer trochanter's coming to one another, anal sphincter contracting and drawing up. Think front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin, as if you were trying to straighten your legs, but the feet are very active. And then think crease of the knee moving towards the kneecap, but the kneecap pushing back into the crease of the knee. Think hip flexors towards butt, flesh of butt lengthens, and the butt pulls back on the hip flexors. And think crease of the ankles towards heels, and heels pulling back towards the crease, as if the crease and the heel were hugging and pushing into one another. At any point you feel your hips too much or it creeps into your knees, you can either bring your knees together and take your feet apart, coming into the counter stretch, which is snowplow, or I can grab you a prop to support your outer thighs. Just making sure if you support one leg that you also support the other leg. Think floating ribs gently coming to one another, back rib cage rooting. Root the backs of the hands, the forearms, maybe even the elbows. Think about sandbags on your shoulder heads, which are facing the ceiling, and melt those shoulder heads to the floor. And then without popping your front ribs, move the skin of your armpits up towards the sky. Close your eyes and just start to focus on your natural breathing. In this practice, we pretty much always breathe in and out through the nose. Let's start to bring awareness to our bellies. And with each inhalation, you want to feel the belly gently rising. With each exhalation, you want to pull that belly down to the floor. Inhale, belly rising, and exhale, belly falling. No forcing, no agitation. It should be an effortless effort. If any kind of tension creeps in physically or mentally, just stop what you're doing, take a break, and join back in with less effort when you feel more relaxed. Some people find it helpful to put their hands on their bellies to really focus on moving into that space. Now that you've found the rhythm of the breath, let's begin to count. Belly rising, 1. Belly falling, 1. Belly rising, 2. Belly falling, 2. And so on and so forth. Continue to count each and every one of your breaths. Yeah, there was so many doesn't feel familiar. Sometimes it's good to do it wrong and then you have to do it right and remember, right? There we go, it feels better. And then the knees melt down. We can probably lower this one for you. So give it a couple breaths, and then this one can come down to medium height as long as it feels good on the neck. Let's take 5 more rounds of breath right into our bellies before we once again return to our natural breathing. No rush, but when those 5 breaths are complete, returning to your natural breath, checking in with your body. If it's starting to be too much of a stretch for your hips, bring your knees together, take your feet apart, or add some support, especially if you don't feel your knees at all. If you want it to be a little deeper into the shoulders, you can slide your elbows up a little bit higher, but we don't want the elbows to be higher than the shoulders at any point. Shoulders melting as the skin of the armpits lifts up towards the sky. As we move the awareness and the breath up into the rib cage, we want to find Uddiyana Bandha by pulling our belly button in, down towards the pelvic floor, and back up as if it was making a backwards J. Let's first begin by breathing into our back ribs, and then our side ribs, and then our front ribs. As we inhale, we want to feel the ribs expanding evenly, and as we exhale, we want to feel the ribs contracting evenly. Sometimes it's helpful to put your hands on your side ribs and your fingers on your front ribs, and really use the bolster or the floor beneath you to feel the back ribs rooting down and expanding into that space. No force, no agitation whatsoever, just a nice mindful breath. Now that we've found the rhythm of the breath, let's begin to count. Ribs expanding, 1. Ribs contracting, 1. Ribs expanding, 2. Ribs contracting, 2. And so on and so forth. Continue to count each and every one of your breaths. Let's count 5 more rounds of breath right into the rib cage before we once again return to our natural breathing. Once those 5 breaths are complete, once again, return to your natural breath. Check in with your body, not overdoing the stretch in any way. Coming into that counter stretch snowplow if your hips are fatiguing or if it tucks into the knees. Again, if you want it deeper in the shoulders, slide your elbows up, but not higher than your shoulders. If you want less in the shoulders, slide your elbows down. To move the breath up into the upper chest and shoulder area, we want to find that beauty on a bandha, pulling our belly button in, down towards the pelvic floor and back up. And then I find pranavaya really helpful, drawing the floating ribs to one another and rooting the back rib cage down. Really think about moving the breath just into the upper chest and shoulder area as you breathe into the back shoulders, the space between the shoulder blades, the trapezius muscles, even the back of the neck to start with. Feel that space rooting down onto the bolster with the inhale. And then let the breath wrap around to the armpit, chest, sternum, collarbones, and throat. With each inhale, feel that space expanding, rooting down, out to the sides and up to the sky. And with each exhale, feel that space evenly, gently contracting. You may find it helpful to place your hands sort of on the armpit, chest, spreading your fingers along the ribs towards the collarbones, whatever feels appropriate for you. Continuously focusing on that gentle movement of the breath within your body. Inhale, chest expanding, 1. Exhale, chest contracting, 1. Inhale, chest expanding, 2. Exhale, chest contracting, 2. And so on and so forth. Continue to count each and every one of your breaths. Let's count 5 more rounds of breath right into the upper chest and shoulders before we once again return to our natural breathing. When those 5 breaths are complete, once again, sitting quietly with your natural breath. And when you're ready, allowing your hands to come to your outer thighs, drawing those knees together. Once the knees are touching, you can heel toe your feet apart. Lifting your gaze, looking at your knees, making sure the knees are level, making sure the heels are equal distance from the pubic bone, so one foot's not wider than the other. And we want the baby toe edge of the foot straight. Baby toe edge of the foot roots. If we feel our knees at any point, we walk the feet closer to one another. I like to lift up my toes, push into the question mark of the foot, and think about pulling my inner heels apart. I think about the crease of the ankle moving towards the heel and the heel hugging back onto the crease of the ankle. I think of the crease of the knee lifting up onto the kneecap hugging back onto the crease of the knee. I think about pulling my femurs back into my hip sockets, front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin. And then I think about internally rotating my groins. So really close to my thigh, where it sort of reaches into my hips. I go from the front groin, I roll it to the middle groin, I go from the middle groin, and I roll it to the back groin. Let's try and keep a little bit of action on those legs as we inhale to reach our fingers up towards the sky. Root the back rib cage down so that we're not popping those front floating ribs. We're going to cross the right arm over the left arm, reaching around for the side body, giving ourselves a little hug and also some resistance to strengthen our lungs with. Start by pushing both arms down into the body, and then if you want more of a stretch, lift the bottom arm up into the top arm without the top arm moving. Think elbow crease to elbow cap, but elbow cap hugs back onto the crease. Think armpits lifting up into shoulders, but shoulders hugging back onto those armpits. And then move the skin of the armpits up as if you wanted the skin of the armpits to move to the chin. And just rock your head just a little bit from side to side, making sure you've got that nice extension, but there's no tension in the neck. Stop with the chin in neutral. You're going to take a great big exhale to empty. That's the only forced breath. And then you're going to fill the belly, then the ribs, then the chest. And then we're going to empty the chest, then the ribs, then the belly. So we're going to cross the right arm over the left arm. Yeah. And gentle, we don't want it to be too much, and you push them into the chest, relax your shoulders, and then if you want more stretch, top arm pushes down, bottom arm lifts up, and it doesn't move, and it gets right into that pinchy nerve area, but make sure it's gentle, yeah? You can unpinch a nerve if you find it, but don't overdo it. So both arms push down into the chest, yeah? And then you're gonna think about this one staying down and this one lifting up. You feel that difference? Good, nice. So we're going to bring both arms, you're going to root them down into your chest, so push them down. Nice, you okay? Mm-hmm. Gentle, we don't want anything to be painful. And then if you want more stretch, you need it, you've not already hit like your 6, then this would stay and the bottom arm would lift. So then you can create that internal resistance. We don't want it to be up here, we want that chin to have lots of space. Beautiful waves of breath up and down the spine. No forcing, no jamming. If everything feels tense in any way, just take a little break. If it feels too much for the shoulders or the neck or the arms, just bring your arms out beside you where they were. If you're keeping your arms where they are, really feel that breath moving inside the body and causing that movement all through the arms, the shoulders, even the elbows moving. Let's take 2 more breaths on this side, and then we're going to swap the crossing. And then when those 2 breaths are complete, nice inhale to reach your fingers back up towards the sky. Finding that place of extension but no tension, so you're not getting that valley between your shoulder blades. You can shake your head for no problem. And then cross the left arm over the right arm, reaching around for the sides of the shoulders. Start by rooting both arms down into your chest, making your neck nice and long. And then if you want more stretch, without the arms actually moving, the left arm pins the right arm down and the right arm lifts up into the left arm. Create space between your shoulder blades if you can, and then just a little bit of shaking your head for no as the fingers and the palms root into the back body. Stop with your chin in center. Once again, big old exhale to empty. And then once you're empty, belly is going to fill, ribs are going to fill, chest is going to fill. And then you'll empty chest, then ribs, then belly. Keeping in mind that you've got a back body, a side body, and a front body, so breathing into all those areas without any force or agitation. Resting those arms anytime you need to. No force, no agitation, just beautiful breaths, massaging your spine, your organs, your shoulders from the inside. Let's take 2 more breaths on this side. And then once those breaths are complete, nice inhale to reach your fingers back up towards the sky. Exhale to bring those arms down beside you, palms facing up, shoulders relaxing, and just finding your natural breath. Heel toe the feet to one another. Let's roll off to the right. Let's push the bolsters aside. And then we're going to come onto our backs for hip series 1. Everybody's favorite medicine. Always feels so good. So lots of room behind us, knees together, feet together, make a nice C with our spine, and then see if we can come down to the mat, one disc, one vertebra at a time without lifting the feet. And we'll just start with a little bit of a back warm-up. We're going to draw one leg up, other leg up. We're going to interlace our fingers over the shins. Right hand is going to interlace on top of left hand, so all the right fingers on top of the left, and then just rocking from side to side. What we're looking for here is that those arm bones are not lifting the shoulders off the floor. So we want to pull the arm bones into the shoulders so the shoulders can relax. If the arms are lifting the shoulders up and we're not able to move our neck comfortably, go for the hands behind the thighs, or you could always use a strap. Push through the feet, squeeze your ankles, squeeze your knees, squeeze your thighs, and let's go from side to side and swap it up to a little bit of pulsing. So if you wake up in the morning, your back and your hips are like, ooh, I didn't sleep very well for my body. Doing this even before you get out of bed, and then when you get out of bed, trying to get out of bed like we teach you how to get up from your back in yoga, where you roll off to your side and push yourself up with a nice straight spine. And then let's allow the pulsing to turn into circles one way. Again, the more we squeeze our thighs, our ankles, and our knees, the more we push into our feet and find front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin. The deeper we're going to open up the joints. Swap your interlacing, change direction with your circles. And you can think about lengthening your pubic bone away from the navel. You can think about all those zigzags in the legs. Crease of the ankle, moving to the heel. Crease of the knee, moving to the kneecap. Crease of the hip flexor, moving to the butt. And then think of the curve moving back into the crease, as if the joint was hugging the crease. Stopping with your circles and go back into the pulsing. And then just a little bit from side to even out those two grips on those two sides. Just keep on breathing. And stopping in center, letting that left foot come down. Take that right leg away from you, interlacing the fingers over the right shin. Try and find a neutral pelvis if you can. Tendency is the right hip bone sinks to the floor, so you're going to pull that left femur into the hip socket to counter out that. Second tendency is that the right hip shortens to the right armpit, so sit your right butt into a chair, take your right hip flexor towards your butt. Your hands are on your shin and your calf and your thigh are lifting up into your hands. But if that causes your shoulders to lift or for your chin to lift and you to start to look at the wall behind you, interlace your fingers behind the thighs so that you can relax your shoulders. Let's point and flex that right foot 5 times, and then we're going to do 5 circles to the right, 5 circles to the left. We want the ankle, the knee, and the hip to remain in a nice straight line. And if we want to go deeper, we can always straighten out that left leg. Keeping neutral pelvis. So once you've pointed and flexed 5 times, try 5 circles one way and then 5 circles the other way. Remember, shoulder heads are melting, skin of the armpits is lifting up towards the sky and lifting up into the shoulders. Shoulders are gently relaxing down over those armpits. Crease of the elbow is moving to the elbow cap is hugging back towards the crease of the elbow. Think about your sternum, which is that plate underneath your chin, protecting your chest. Think about lifting that sternum up and broadening all the ribs off the sternum, broadening your collarbones. Flex your foot, sole the foot flat. You're then going to curl your toes like your toes are holding onto a pencil. You're then going to point your foot like a dancer would. You're then going to flip just the toes back to you, including the baby toes. Try and draw them back towards your right ear. You're going to flex, you're going to curl, you're going to point, you're going to flip. One more time, flex, curl, point, and flip. Get the action of the toes, and then flex your foot so that the sole of the foot is flat. You're going to release your arms beside you or your hands to your pelvis as you straighten out that right leg, trying to get the sole of the foot flat. If it tugs into your back at all, bend one or both legs. If it's fatiguing, bend one or both legs. Ideally, the right leg is straight before the left leg is straight. And then without moving your pelvis, I want you to visualize a tray of drinks on the sole of the foot, and you're going to draw circles with your heel without spilling that tray of drinks. If your knee is bent, think about drawing circles with your kneecap and encouraging that movement right inside the hip socket. Those circles can be small, and then gradually they can grow, but we don't want them to be Ds. We want them to be full circles. No tugging into the back. Rest of the body is totally still. And let's change direction with our circles. So circles the other way. Neck and shoulders relaxed. You can shake your head from no at any time. And stopping with those circles, we're going to bend the left leg, sole the left foot on the floor, left ankle, left knee, and left hip in a straight line. Bend the right leg, externally rotate at the right thigh, and hook the right ankle on the outside of the left knee for number 4 pose. Fire up your feet and get rid of all the wrinkles in your heels. No wrinkles in the heels. Get your big toe mound as far away from your knee as your baby toe mound. Front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin. Think about lengthening your groins to your inner knees to outer knees, particularly that right knee moves towards knee, and then draw back from outer knee to outer trochanter's connect. From here, we can move into thread the needle. We could put our foot on a block, we could use a strap, or we could interlace our fingers with the right hand on top, behind our thigh. And then start by kind of creating a tug of war. Hands are pulling the legs to you, but the legs are trying to get as far away from you as you can. And then gradually allow the arms to start to win the tug of war, pulling those legs towards you. Remember, there should be zero tension in the neck and the shoulders. You can always stack a couple blocks underneath your feet to avoid using the arms, right? So you can have your heel on a block, you could dig your heel into a block, you could let the shoulders relax, and you could do cactus arms, you could hold on to your elbows, you could do halfway to a T arms. So really paying attention to those shoulders, and if they're lifting, particularly that right side is lifting, then it's better to let the shoulders relax a little bit. So we can just do that. And then just let, yeah, there, see what a difference, hey? And then dig your heel in, and then think about pulling this in, yeah. And then without this moving, you can start to move this towards my fingers. Nice, you've done your shoulders can relax, good, but you still get the hip stretch. You could do halfway to a T, cactus arms to open up the shoulders, but not overuse them. Big, beautiful breaths. Always letting me know if you need a prop that you don't have. The tendency is that there's more weight in that right hip, so you're going to inject that left femur to get the pelvis level so that both hip bones are equal distance from the floor. Big, beautiful breaths. So if you look at this femur, you see how it's at an angle. So what does that tell me? Yeah, means that hip's lower. You can probably feel that side of your pelvis more. Okay. Let's just go 5 more breaths here. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, no rush, you're going to release your fingers, you're going to let that left foot come down. Take your hands to your pelvis, try and find a neutral pelvis, and then options are to keep your hands on your pelvis, trying not to move it. As we push into the elbows, we might be able to lengthen the back ribs away, relaxing the shoulders, lengthening the head. Or we could bring our arms beside us like a down dog, either or. Draw the right knee towards your navel to uncross. Open up the back of the right knee. Remember, if it tugs into your back or is too challenging, you bend the right knee. That will make it lighter. Flex the foot, exhale to lower, heel taps the floor, point the toe, or it taps a doodle. Inhale to lift, nice and slow. Pelvis doesn't move, shoulders don't move, ribs don't pop. Flex the foot, exhale to lower, point the toe, inhale to lift. So again, honoring the neutral pelvis, honoring the ribs and the shoulders, keeping that nice neutral spine, neutral neck. Left knee should not be moving in or out, and we really push into that left foot to make this easier. When the heel hits the floor the next time, we're going to add a heel drag. We're going to draw the heel towards the butt, ankle, knee, and hip in a straight line. We're going to drag the heel along the floor away from the butt, and then we're going to inhale to bring that leg back up. We're going to exhale to drop the leg back down. We're going to inhale to drag the heel towards the butt. We're going to exhale to drag the heel away from the butt, and then we're going to inhale to bring it back up. If that's easy, next time you drag your heel, drag it so it doesn't touch the floor, but it's as close to the floor as it possibly could be without touching the floor. Keep doing that same movement. And if that's still easy peasy, keeping the heel lifted, you can start to straighten out the left leg. And after a few with the straight left leg, if it's still really easy for you to keep a neutral pelvis, everything's all good, left leg is straight, you want to make it harder. Next time that right leg comes up, then just float that left heel, hover it off the floor. Again, not letting those shoulder heads pop up. We have a tendency to avoid using our core and our back muscles and to just go into those trapezius muscles, which is what life does to us too. So really relax your neck and shoulders. They should not be overworking in life, but definitely not be overworking in yoga class. Let's do 2 more, and then we're going to bring that right leg up into the sky to just hold that right leg up in the sky. So 2 more full alternate leg lifts and heel drags. And then when those 2 are done, bring that right leg up to the sky and just hold it up there. Remember, you can bend one or both knees at any point. Push through the feet. Make sure the big toe mounds and baby toe mounds are equal distance from the knees. Think about injecting your femurs back into the hip sockets. Think about those outer trochanter's coming to one another. We want a neutral neck here, so our ears are with our shoulders, and at no point does our neck change. So measure the distance between your chin, looking directly up at the ceiling without getting any wrinkles in the back or the front of the neck. And then maybe if you want more, you just lift your arms. And again, listening to your own body, this is a multi-level class. If you're choosing to lift your shoulders, the neck doesn't change, and we just lift our shoulders by pressing the ribs down. So the front ribs push into the back ribs root to the floor, and our shoulders just lift, but our heads could easily shake. So Judy, go easy on those ones. You can really pull those femurs in. Then regardless of whether you're lifting your head or not, think about a corset moving from your rib cage to your pelvis, and then shorten that corset as if you were using strings to pull the pelvis and the ribs closer to one another as you reach your fingers towards the end of the mat and you lift your armpits up into your shoulders. Let's go 3 more breaths here. When those 3 breaths are complete, you're going to lower your spine 1 disc, 1 vertebra at a time. You're going to bend the left leg, you're going to bend the right leg, and you're going to cross that right leg nice and tight over your left leg so there's no room for air between your thighs. Your thighs are touching. If it's hard to cross your legs, you slide your left foot further away from you. So the tendency here is that right hip is now higher than your left hip. So you're going to pull the right femur down to the floor. The second tendency is that you shorten on the right side of the torso. So you have to sit your right butt into a chair, trying to find a neutral pelvis. You could lengthen your back ribs and your head away from that neutral pelvis. Fire up your feet, no wrinkles in your heels. And then same options. You could put your foot on a block, you could use a strap, you could interlace your fingers behind the thighs, right hand on top of left. But whatever you're choosing to do, the neck and the shoulders are relaxed. If your shoulder heads start to pop, you need longer arms, whether that requires a strap or a block, so that you can inject your arms, relax the shoulder heads to the floor, and shake your head for no problem. If you want more stretch, it's front thigh to back thigh, it's calf to shin. The inner thighs are dropping a block, the outer thighs are squeezing a block. Cubic bone lengthening away from navel, butt sitting into a chair. Think about taking the crease of your hip flexors at an angle towards your sit bones and your butt hugging back on that crease. Think about the backs of the knees moving towards the kneecaps and the kneecaps hugging back onto that crease. Think about the crease of the ankles moving towards the heels and the heels hugging back on that crease. And then find those same connections in your armpits. Armpit crease is lifting up into the shoulder gently hugs back on the armpit, and we move the armpit from back to front, as if those armpits are trying to reach for the ceiling. Go to your sternum, slide it up towards your throat, and broaden the ribs off your sternum. Broaden your collarbones towards your side shoulders. Crease of the elbows moves towards elbow caps. Crease of the wrist moves towards the curve of the wrist. The curves are hugging back onto the crease. You could even find the crease of all your knuckles moving from crease to cap, cap to crease. So it's like the joint is hugging. No wrinkles in those heels. Let's throw in a couple extra belly breaths here. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, let that left foot come down. Find that nice neutral pelvis. Uncross. You can open up the back of that right leg if you like, and then find your knees and your feet a hip's distance apart. Let's do the other side. So with a neutral pelvis, you can lengthen the back ribs and then the head away from that neutral pelvis. As we draw that left leg to us, left ankle, left knee, left hip in a straight line. Interlace your fingers, left hand on top of right over the shin. Thigh and calf lift up as the hand gently draws down. Make sure the shoulders are relaxed. And remember, if you can't relax the shoulders, make your arms longer by placing your hand behind your thigh or using a strap. Pull the arm bones a little into the shoulder sockets to relax the shoulders to the floor, and then create resistance by moving the crease of the elbow towards the elbow cap so that you find extension, no tension, and you can lift your sternum and broaden it. Let's point and flex 5 times, and then we're going to do 5 circles each way. Front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin, and then finding all the creases of your joints, moving to all the curvy caps of your joints, crease moving into cap, cap moving back at that crease. Feel free to straighten out that right leg anytime you like, especially if you straightened on the other side. We want to remember what we did on one side so we can do the exact same thing on the other side. And then once you finish those 15 ankle movements, we're going to flex the foot, sole the foot flat. We're going to keep the sole of the foot flat, and we're going to curl the toes as if the toes are reaching for the toe mounds. We're going to keep curling the toes as if the toes are reaching for the toe mounds. We're going to point the foot like a dancer would. We're going to keep pointing the foot like a dancer, and then we're going to flip the toes back to us and try and spread them. Try and flip the pinky toe back to you too. Flex, curl, point, and flip. Flex, curl, point, and flip. Keep the action of the toes, flex the foot, getting rid of any wrinkles in the heels. Remembering it's going to be more mellow if you bend the right leg, placing the sole of the right foot on the floor as you start to straighten out that left leg. Feel your pelvis. Try and get that left hip bone as high as the right hip bone from the floor, and try and sit your butt into a chair so that the distance from hip to armpit is the same. Tugging into your back at all, then you're going to bend the knee. The foot is flexed. We visualize we've got a tray of drinks on the sole of the foot, and we do not want to spill a drop. And then we're going to draw circles with our heels. Not D's, but circles. They can be small, but they have to be circles. If you bend your knee, you can draw the same circles with your kneecap. Really moving that femur and adjusting that trochanter, the head of the femur, inside the hip socket. Change direction with your circles. Rest of the body is totally still. The only thing that's moving is that left leg. How's the temperature in here, you guys? It's great. It's nice to have that fresh spring air, but it's nippy out there. And then stopping with your circles, we're going to bend the right leg if it's straight. We're going to bend the left leg. We're going to remember that we're going to pivot at the hip, not the knee, as we externally rotate. And we're going to hook that left ankle on the outside of the right knee for number 4. No wrinkles in either heels, and get your big toe mounds as far away from your knee as your baby toe mounds on both feet. Neutral pelvis, you could always lengthen the ribs and the head away from that pelvis. Front thigh, back thigh, calf to shin, really lengthening the inner heels. Think vice on the heels, vice on the thighs, squeezing towards the bone. And then when you're ready, you can put your foot on a block, you could interlace your fingers, left hand on top of right, or use a strap. If the shoulders are lifting, make your arms longer any which way you can so that the shoulders can relax. Try and do both sides the same. So if you used a prop on one side, like a block underneath your heel, use a prop on this side. And then start by really thinking about taking your legs away from you. Digging your heel into the floor, a block or an imaginary block, and then use the arms to pull the legs back to you. So you're creating a tug of war, and then eventually, if you're using your arms or a strap, the arms will start to win and the legs will start to come to you. If you're using a block or the floor, just always think legs moving away from you, but then go to your hamstrings, which are the backs of your thighs, and pull the hamstrings towards the quads to get that nice release. If you're not using a strap or your hands, you could find a different shoulder release, something that's appropriate, halfway to a T, or cactus. Neck is neutral, breath is full. Tendency here is that the left hip drops, so some of us need to really think about pulling the right femur into the hip socket. And the next tendency is that the left hip shortens towards the left armpit. So we want to create length between the left armpit and the left hip. Scanning your body, getting your little checks. Front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin, inner groin lengthens to inner knee, left inner knee comes towards me in the center of the room. Not allowing those creases to creep in. Tiny bit, we're going to pull this in just a little tiny bit. Nice. Can you pull that upper arm bone into your shoulder and relax it? Just a tiny bit higher. It's not bad though. Just relax. It's pretty tense there. So just loosen your grip, make your hands a little bit longer. So make your arms a little longer, just loosen your grip. There we go. Nice. And then you feel how you can do that, and we can let that relax a little bit. Does that make sense? So if our arms aren't long enough, then we get this sort of tension here, it's all tight, and we pull this in, we relax that, it just kind of lets go a little bit, and our head can breathe. Nicole, can you bring your knee to me? Can you bring your knee to me? Keep it coming. You just moved it this much. So. Let's go 5 more breaths here. When those 5 breaths are complete, you're going to release your fingers if you're using them. You're going to float your right leg down to the floor, right heel in line with right sit bone. Find a nice neutral pelvis. Relax your shoulders. To keep the knee nice and safe, you're going to draw that left knee towards your navel to uncross, and you're going to open up the back of that left leg. Keeping a neutral pelvis. Again, it's more important to have a straight left leg than it is a straight right leg. If it tugs into your back at all, bend your left knee. Or if you want to make it less challenging, bend your left knee. So we're going to do alternate leg lifts to start with. Root your pelvis, root your back rib cage, relax your neck and shoulders, active arms, whether they're on your pelvis or on the floor. Nothing moves except for that left leg. So we're going to exhale to lower that left leg, flexed foot, the heel taps or come close to tapping, point your foot, inhale to bring it up. Flex, exhale to lower, point, inhale to lift. You need a really solid right leg. So you're pulling the right femur in so that the left hip isn't moving. You're thinking inner thighs dropping the block, outer thighs squeezing the block, so we're not going Willy Wonka side to side with either leg. The next time your heel hits the floor, we're going to add a heel drag. Dragging your heel of the left foot towards your left sit bone, and then dragging your heel away. Inhale to bring that leg back up, flex, exhale to lower. Keeping that flexed foot, drag the heel towards your sit bone, drag it away. Inhale, bring the heel back up. If that's easy peasy, you could gradually start to lift that left heel as you drag it. So you think about dragging a marble or a pea, heel almost touching the floor, but not quite. And then after you've done a couple with the heel dragging without touching the floor, if you want to make it more challenging, you can straighten out that right leg. And then after a few more, if you still wanted to make it more challenging, when that left leg comes up into the sky, then you could always have the option of floating that left heel just off the floor. Making sure it's not moving into the neck, the shoulders, or the trapezius muscles. Making sure your floating ribs are not popping up into your shirt, away from the floor. As you continue with this series. Keeping that sacrum, that pelvis, nice and secure on the floor. Let's do 2 more, and then we're going to bring that left leg up into the sky to hang out. Remember, you can always rest whenever you need to. So when that left heel comes up to hang out, again, you could always float the right heel, you could always bend the right leg, bend the left leg a little. Do what you need to do to make this manageable. Really think, crease of the hips moving towards butt, neutral pelvis, pull your femurs into your hip sockets, pull the outer trochanters to one another. Neutral neck and neck stays neutral, maybe you float your arms. Think down dog, rock solid arms. And then maybe you push into your ribs to lift your head, reaching your fingers towards the end of the mat. But if it's already hard with your shoulders on the floor, don't lift your shoulders if you have any neck stuff. Just keep your head on the floor. And then I visualize a corset between my pelvis and my rib cage, and I think about shortening that space, really rooting my back ribs, reaching with my fingers, armpits lifting into shoulders and shoulders hugging armpits, so the whole time my neck can stay relaxed and I'm looking up towards the ceiling. Back of the skull roots either into the floor or an imaginary floor, and the forehead lifts up as my ears reach towards the top of my mat or the wall behind me. Let's go 5 more breaths here. You got this. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, slow as you can, lower that upper back, 1 disc, 1 vertebra at a time. Bend the right leg, bend the left leg, cross that left leg nice and tight over the right, and just pause here in Sleepy Cow. Great place to lengthen the back ribs and the head away from the pelvis. Think about pulling that left femur to the floor because that left hip wants to hike up away from the floor. Again, if it's hard to cross or it feels like too much, you walk that right foot away from you. That's going to make it gentler. Feel free to put your foot on a block. Use a strap behind your thighs or interlace your fingers, left hand on top of right behind your thighs. One of my favorite connections in this pose, once you've relaxed your neck and your shoulders, so it's very easy to shake your head for no, and you can do this with or without your hands. You think front thigh to back thigh. And then you think about your hamstrings, which are the backs of your thighs, between your knee and your butt. Pull your hamstrings towards your quads, your front thighs. Lengthen the hamstrings down towards the butt as the quads lengthen towards the knees. You get a really nice stretch that way. Feet are active, no wrinkles in your heels. You still want more stretch. You've not already hit your edge. Inner thighs dropping an imaginary block, outer thighs squeezing an imaginary block. Like you've got a vice on your thighs squeezing those bones, right? And then the quads are moving towards the bone, the hamstring is going towards the bone, so those legs are hugging the leg bone. And then see if you can find the same connection on your heel. Think about your inner heel moving towards your outer heel and your outer heel moving towards your inner heel, squeezing. And then a lot of us are shortening on our inner heel. So we want to lengthen our inner heel away from our ankle so that our inner heel is hitting an imaginary floor as much as our outer heel. And then find the same connection, big toe mound, baby toe mound. So we're doing thighs touching. So you're just going to slide that leg over so the thighs touch. Just a different stretch. Yeah, there we go. It's more outer leg, this one more groins. Find those zigzags of the leg, crease to cap. Zigzags of the arms, crease to cap. Feel the weight even, both sides of the pelvis, both sides of the ribs, both sides of the shoulders. Let's go 5 big belly breaths here. Sit your butt into a chair, pubic bone away from navel. When those 5 breaths are complete, you're just going to release, you're going to float your legs down, you're going to uncross. We're going to have our knees and our feet at hips distance apart. We're going to bring those arms in like a down dog, close to the body, pushing into our fingers and our palms, finding a nice neutral pelvis, making sure we can shake our head for no. And then pushing into our feet and our arms, we're going to lift our low back, our mid back, and our upper back as we come into a little bridge. So really thinking about moving the flesh of the butt away from the low back and the middle of the butt up towards the sky. Keeping the length from hip to armpit, backs of the knees moving to kneecaps, kneecaps hugging the backs of the knees. Crease of the ankle towards the heel, heel hugging the crease of the ankle. Let's go a little bit wider with your feet, Linda. Just a tiny bit. Yeah, right there, good. Shins are eventually at a 90-degree angle with the floor, and the calves are moving forward. Sometimes it's nice to lift our toes a little bit to really engage those shin muscles and keep those knees happy. Think about your hamstrings, the backs of the thighs lifting up towards the quads and the quads pushing down towards the hamstrings. The hamstrings pull back to the butt and the quads lengthen towards the knees. Visualizing that vice on your thighs, inner thighs dropping the block, outer thighs squeezing the block. Think about that vice on your heels, inner heels dropping the block, outer heels squeezing the block. Shoulder heads to the floor, armpits to the sky, floating ribs connect and root down. Back ribs are pushing into an imaginary ball so they're not popping out. Go to your sternum, draw it towards your throat, and broaden. So keep in the back bend, no pillow underneath your head. Yeah. Let's see if we've got 5 more breaths left in us here, and then when those 5 breaths are complete, we're gonna come down one disc, one vertebra at a time, nice and slow, really lengthening our backs. So you feel these knees going up to the side and the weight more in that edge. So you want to pull just the knees in, not the feet, just the knees, not the feet. Yeah. So now you feel how the weight's more even in the feet, not just on one side. We want to feel the weight on the big toe edge as much as the baby toe edge. So when that's done, you're down one disc, one vertebra at a time. We're going to roll off to our right side. So we just roll to the right. Right arm becomes a pillow for our head. Left palm comes in front of our chest. We're going to bring ourselves up to form up those wrists, create a little bone density. Tabletop position, index fingers are going to point forward. We're going to push into our fingers. We're going to push into our palms. And we're going to almost feel like we're lifting our middle knuckles up. Lift your ribs, lift your belly. Let's start with a few shoulder push-ups here, just moving that humerus bone in and out of the shoulder socket. So arms remain straight, and then we're lifting our ribs, we're lifting our belly, and it's just like we're taking that torso and we're moving it up and down on that upper arm bone. So the arm bones don't change, they're like stilts, right? They're solid, elbows not bending, and then we just take that torso and we move it in and away from that bone, the arm bone, the humerus bone. Notice when we let the arm bone go way into the shoulder socket, we get a valley between our shoulder blades. And noticing when we push the floor away, we fill that valley between our shoulder blades. We move from kind of like big angel wings popping out of our back to filling that valley. Angel wings hugging our back. So to find that perfect place of extension, no tension, we don't want a valley, but we don't want tension. So we're pushing the floor away so that we can easily shake our head for no, but we don't have those angel wings popping up. Pushing into our fingers, pushing into our palms, we're going to exhale to curl the spine, thinking angry kitty, and then we're going to inhale, shoulders back, sit bones lift, gazing up. Exhale to curl the spine, thinking angry kitty, and then inhaling, shoulders back, sit bones lift, gazing up. And just moving back and forth with your breath, really controlling how you're moving those arm bones in and out of the shoulder socket. There's a really strong tendency that when we come into the back bend, if we're really mobile, we let our shoulders go heavy on those arms and then our neck gets really jammy. Whereas if we're pushing the floor away, using and engaging the shoulders, we can come into that back bend and we can always shake our head for no. We've got full access to our neck. No jammy, jammy, crunchy, crunchy. So don't let those valleys creep in as we move into the back bend. Let's go back and forth 3 more times. And then once those 3 times are complete, we're going to find that nice straight spine. We're going to take our seat towards our feet. We can even slide those arms forward if there's space for it, finding a nice puppy pose. Getting our seat close to our butt, arm bones lifting away from the floor, armpits lifting away from the floor, shoulders hugging back down to the floor. One day our arms will be with our ears and our arms are straight, but our elbow crease is moving towards the elbow cap. Really think hip flexors moving back as the wrists move forward. Create as much length and space in the torso as you can. Think floating ribs lifting up, belly lifting up, and either choosing to stay here in puppy pose, especially if we have any shoulder stuff going on, or we could go into a child's pose, or we could go into a down dog pose, whatever you feel is best for you. But we want to try and keep the shoulders straight and a little bit of a bend in the knees. Heads hang nice and heavy. Watching that we're not getting a lift in the base of the thumb and the index, and allowing that weight to creep into that outer pinky wrist. I think of my circumference of the palm as a suction cup, and I want that entire section to root. You've got a wee bend here, so you're going to bend your knees, and you're going to take your hip flexors, keep your hands there, pushing your hand. Yeah, you feel how the shoulders just opened? So it's more important to get that straight opening in the shoulders than it is to straighten the legs. Think shoulders rooting down, armpits lifting up, and then slowly start to create a tug of war between your hamstrings and your calves. Nice. Let's just go 5 more breaths here. Once those 5 breaths are complete, you're going to come down onto your knees. We're going to sit on our shins. If sitting on your shins is not an option, then you can sit cross-legged on your 2 bolsters. So, the first option is to have your knees together, your feet together. Take 1 bolster. You could also use a second mat if you didn't have a bolster at home. And you're going to shove that bolster into the backs of the knees and sit back. This is a really good calf and ankle stretch. But if it's too much of a calf and ankle stretch, then you're going to place 1 bolster between your ankles, keeping your knees together. And then you're going to take the second bolster and you're going to shove it into the backs of the knees, like that. So this is a more mellow option. Thighs are touching, so you want to have those knees drawn a little bit forward. Feet are pointing straight back, and we need the baby toes to be down. Nice. Shoulders back, armpits lift. Make sure you can do this and you're not going to hit a neighbor. So how does that feel? Does that feel okay? Yeah. If it becomes too much of an ankle stretch, let me know. You can come out.
I'm okay this way, or should I be on that?
Can you plant your feet? I was thinking cross-legged is probably an easier option for you, right? What do you think?
This is best.
You just want to be like this? Okay, perfect. Whatever works.
Yeah. Thanks.
So we're going to try and get a nice straight spine. So your ears are right over your shoulders. You're zipping your belly. Think flesh of the butt moving away from the low back. And then think of flutter kick, like your feet are kicking into the floor. So more height. Just use the second one. Yeah. Shoulder heads back. So get the ears, shoulders, and hips stacked. Zip your belly, flesh of the butt down. We're going to bring the arms out in front of us. Our pinky wrist and our thumb wrist are stacked. We're going to push our fingers down, and we're going to lift the circumference of that palm up. So the palm is rooting down, but the inside of that palm is lifting up. Again, find the wrist level, and then do a couple shoulder push-ups here. And then noticing when we take the arms too far to the body, we get like a hunch in our mid-upper back, and it's harder for us to move our neck. So we pull those arm bones in just right so that we don't have a big valley between our shoulder blades, but we can move our neck very freely. Inner elbow to outer elbow. We're going to try and keep these arms without the ribs popping. We're going to inhale to bring these arms up. We can take them a little bit wider if we need to, but one day we're going to keep them a shoulder's distance apart. Fingertips are pushing forward, palms are rooting away. Now really think about the armpits going into the shoulders and the shoulders hugging back onto those armpits. You're lifting up into the back of the skull, but the forehead is rooting forward. And again, nice and slow, we're going to bring those arms down like an airplane. Beautiful. Keep pushing your fingers forward, keep sucking your palms up. Broaden from the sternum to the armpits. Find a little mini bend in the elbows and just feel that. Good. So this is our simple back bends, floating ribs coming to one another and back rib cage rooting back. So we don't want to go into the ribs popping, we want to think floating ribs coming to one another, back rib cage rooting back. Beautiful. Zip your belly, flesh the butt down, kick like crazy into those feet. Inhale to bring it back up into Superman. Pinky wrist, thumb wrist level, noticing when those thumb wrists start to drop back and bring that thumb wrist forward. Straight arms is more important than arms closer together. Go wider if you need to. And then one last time, bring those arms down, armpits lifting up into shoulders, shoulders hugging back onto those armpits. Breathing, arms are in concrete, they're moving in all directions. Fingers, wrists active, elbow creases active. And release, let those palms face up, let those shoulders relax, big, beautiful breaths. From here, we're just going to interlace our fingers behind our back. If we can't interlace, that's fine. If we can straighten our elbows, we can bring our palms together, shoulders back, and we can just drop the chin down. So Brent, coming forward and just opening up the backs of the knees. Is it your ankles that you're feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to do what I'm showing you to do. You're just going to come forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you're just going to tuck your toes, and you're just going to stretch out those ankles. Yeah.
Okay.
And those of us that are interlacing our fingers, we're going to lift our chin, we're going to swap the interlacing, and we're going to do the same thing with the opposite interlacing. So shoulder heads back, armpits up, arms straight, and you're just going to drop your chin down towards your chest. Big, beautiful breaths. Yeah, we're coming out now anyway. And if you're coming forward like this, it's better just to come out of it and stretch out those ankles. And chin coming up, release, let those palms face forward. Again, nice breaths right into the shoulders. And then when you're ready, we're going to come forward into tabletop position. If we've got any elbow or shoulder or wrist stuff, we're going to come onto the elbows, we're going to zip our bellies, and we're going to lower down from there, right? And that way we're just keeping our shoulders, our wrists, and our elbows safe. If we've got no issues with our wrists and our elbows and our shoulders, we can come through chaturanga with the elbows up and pulling back onto our bellies. So again, make sure that you can do the T pose here, but let's start with Superman, bringing the arms out in front of us. Fingertips are going to push into the floor. We're going to try and get our pinky wrist and our thumb wrist equal distance from the floor. We're going to lengthen our legs back. We're going to point our feet, our baby toes are going to be on the floor, and we're going to lift our ankles up like an upward dog foot as we draw the heels away from the backs of the knees. We're going to start with our forehead on the floor so that our necks are nice and long. Walk your fingers away from you and lift the palms of the hands. Imagine you've got coconuts between your fingers that you're squeezing. Now push into the tops of the feet. Get your toes down, including your baby toes. Feet are at hips distance apart. Think of a vice on your heels. Think of a vice on your thighs. Lengthen your calves towards your heels and move your calves towards the floor. Lift your thighs up away from the floor. Nicole, feet are hips distance apart. Zip your belly. Lower abdomen lifts up and draws as if it's going to tuck in underneath your ribs. Flesh of butt moves away from the low back, middle of the butt to the floor. Find your pubic bone and your hip bones evenly rooting into the floor. Think front ribs, the floating ribs drawing to one another, and energetically lift them off the floor. Imagine there's balloons in your back ribs and think about them floating up. Again, we're not coming up just yet, we're just finding the connections. Think about the armpits lifting up into the shoulders and the shoulders hugging back onto the armpits. It's an external rotation of the upper arms and the armpits are moving towards the ears. Elbow crease to elbow cap hugging crease. Internally rotating the lower arm, make sure your hands are shoulders distance apart so that your pinky wrist, even wider, is as wide as your outer shoulder. Crease of the wrist, lifting towards the curve of the wrist. Push into the fingertips and move all the creases of your finger knuckles towards the cap of the knuckle hugging the crease. Palm lifts, and then when you're ready, feet are not going to lift, nothing's going to change. You're going to use your rib cage to lift your arms and your shoulders up off the floor. So nice inhale, just think about your front ribs lifting and allow that to lift everything up off the floor except for your feet. So your hands are going to lift, your head is going to lift, Your shoulders are gonna lift, but the back of the neck is nice and long. No wrinkles in the neck. Come down anytime you like. If you need a break, you can stack your hands and just rest your forehead on your hands. Otherwise, we're staying here in our Superman. Keep on breathing. And then see if you have it in you to take the arms to a T position, like an airplane. Thumb wrist not lower than the shoulders. This isn't a halfway to a T position. This is a T position. There are balloons in your armpits, and lift those armpits up. Lift your front ribs. No wrinkles in the neck. Keep lifting your thighs and rooting your feet. Everybody's breathing. So good for us. The not so simple, simple back bends. Lift those shoulder heads. And then nice exhale, stack your hands. Forehead resting on the hands. You can have your toes pointing in and your heels pointing out. Or you can have your toes pointing out and your heels pointing in with the feet as wide as your mat. Just remember what you did, so next time you can try the opposite one. Big, beautiful waves of breath up and down the spine. Let's just go 5 more breaths here. And then when you're ready, we're going to point our feet straight back at hips distance. We're going to lift the ankles and lengthen our heels. Vice on the heels, vice on the thighs. We're going to walk our hands forward, finding our fingertips. We're going to make sure our outer wrist is as wide as our outer shoulder. If it's hard to straighten our arms, we can go wider, like a champagne or a martini glass. Forehead is down, ears are with shoulders. Think about lifting your armpits up. Move all your creases to all your calves. Flesh of the butt away from the low back. Thighs lifting. Tug of war between the hamstrings and the calves. And then when you're ready, lift your ribs, lift your shoulders. The feet and the arms are going to float. When you lift those feet, just think about lifting the thighs so that the feet float. But we still keep that action of the calves rooting down. Armpits lifting up into the shoulders. Wrists lifting from crease to cap. Balloons in the palms of your hands to come up higher. Keep the rotation of the upper and lower arms. So it's an external rotation of the upper arm so that your neck can move very freely. You know your rest pose, so do it whenever you need to. Think sandbags on your arms and lift your arms without losing the alignment. Lift your thighs without losing the alignment. And then let's move from Superman to airplane. We want T's, not halfway to a Y, so bring those wrists so they're in line with your shoulders. Looking down, can you easily shake your head for no, or are you creeping into extension with tension? Is there a valley between your shoulder blade, or can you find extension, no tension, by pulling your arm bones out of your shoulders and lifting your armpits up into your shoulders? You're going to hold this last set as long as you can, and then when you're done, you're going to come into your rest pose. Inner heels dropping the block. Especially you, Bert. Inner heels dropping the block. It's like the front thighs have to roll in to keep those knees neutral and create space in that low back. If we externally rotate the thighs, it gets a little jammy in our low back. When you're done, no rush, staying as long as you can. You stack your hands, and you can either have your toes pointing in or your toes pointing out. If it feels weird on your knees to have your toes pointing out, just have your toes pointing in. And then finding those nice, big, beautiful waves of breath up and down the spine. Let's go 5 more breaths here. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, tuck your toes. Remember, you can transition over your elbows coming into tabletop position, or you can come up almost like a push-up, but keep your shoulders stable. From here, we're either gonna roll over our toes onto our butts, or we're gonna take our feet out to one side, our hands out to the other side, sweeping those legs forward. Legs are straight. If we need to sit on a bolster or put bolster underneath our knees, that's always a good option, especially if we've got tighter hamstrings. Feel free to do that. Fingertips beside us, shoulders back. If you've got the bolster underneath your knees, make sure it's to the right so that there's nothing on the outside of that left knee. Bend the right leg, take the right leg outside the left leg. Nice big inhale to lift and lengthen. See if you can find the center of your sit bones. Left hand's gonna stay. If you can't get the foot to the outside, just keep it on its own side. No harm there. You can even move the boulder here. But we want the whole sole of the foot down. So if the foot's lifted, just bring it to its own side. Big inhale to lift and lengthen. Left hand stays, right hand comes behind us. So we're just gonna take this foot right here. Own side. Yeah, it doesn't come all the way down, just keep it on its own side. Nice. We're gonna turn to the right, yeah. So watching that front shoulder, it can tend to drop down. Lift that front armpit up, then shoulder heads back, armpits forward, twisting first at the belly. So right belly rotates, pulls in, tucks in underneath left rib, and then we think about twisting all the ribs. Maybe the elbow comes outside the knee. Maybe we can turn the gaze behind us. Just a few deep breaths here. Leg into arm, arm into leg. And then unwinding back to center, interlace your fingers, big inhale to lift and lengthen. We're gonna swap the crossing, so the opposite leg is gonna go over to the opposite side. So this time the left leg is either crossing over or it can stay on its own side. If it doesn't come to the point where the foot comes down firmly, then keep it on its own side. So keep own side. Yeah, so you can do either this, right, and keep it on its own side like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this bolster would go towards the window. Yeah, and then you're gonna be able to bend that. Yeah, good. Interlace your fingers, nice big inhale to lift and lengthen. Right hand stays, left hand comes behind us. Get the shoulders and armpits level, shoulder heads back. First twist at the waist, then twist at the ribs, then twist at the shoulders, then maybe the arm moves, then twist at the waist, the ribs, the shoulders, and the last thing that goes is the head. Arm pushing into leg, leg pushing into arm. No tension in the neck. If we're bulging in that left side of the neck, do less. Find your torso and your spine a little bit straighter. Yeah, nice improvement, Nicole, you're getting it. Big, beautiful breaths. And then unwinding back to center, interlace your fingers, big inhale to lift and lengthen, uncross. Let's come from here into Shavasana. You want to do a quick bird with you for it, go for it. And then hands behind the thighs, make a nice C, coming down nice and slow. And then one leg's gonna lengthen, other leg's gonna lengthen, arms up beside us, palms facing up. Take a minute to relax the shoulders, add any height you like. It's going to be a shorter Savasana today, so we're not going to worry about any blankets.